Crypto God here, and today I have Marcus of SCRIPT3, and he's here to tell you about himself, what he does, what the script. Tell me the goods, good sir.
Yeah, so I'm Marcus Paulson Luna. I run a startup called SCRIPT3, and we are building DeFi protocols on Stellar using a technology called Turing signing servers that was recently released by the Stellar Development Foundation.
Well, there you go. Now, you said it's a startup, so you're just getting started, huh?
Yeah, we've been building this thing for 3 years. It really took off in the last year. So, yeah, it's taken a lot of different forms. It's been a lot of work, but it's been a ton of fun.
That's awesome. So 3 years in the work. So for people, right, who know nothing about Stellar or what your plan on is, right, break it down for them a little bit. Talk to me like I'm stupid.
All right. I think most people have probably heard of Ripple. Ripple was created by a guy named Jed McCabe. And he decided that they were going in a terrible route and he didn't want to be part of the company that was managing it anymore. So he left to go, he forked Ripple and went and started Stellar, and to develop the protocol blockchain in more of direction that he thought made sense. This was all the way back in 2014. So this is a long time ago. It's one of the original blockchain platforms, but, since then, Stellar has warped into kind of its own beast. It uses a consensus protocol called a federated Byzantine agreement, which is pretty significantly different than proof of work and proof of stake, which are what most popular blockchains are built on. And then in addition to that, it has a incredibly flexible asset and transaction system that's built to work really well with real world financial assets. And its consensus protocol makes it extremely fast and extremely cheap. It's probably one of the, it's definitely one of the cheapest ones out there, and also one of the fastest, and one of the most heavily adopted. It is actually, I think recently it's been in front of Ethereum and Bitcoin in terms of transaction volume, but that's also because their transaction volume is measured slightly differently than Ethereum and Bitcoin. Stellar's transactions are structured as transaction envelopes, which are groups of 100 operations. So most of them are only a few operations, but those would in Ethereum, like one transaction can have not an unlimited amount of operations, but a very large number of operations, and it'll still count as one transaction. So that's like a basic rundown on Stellar if some of the listeners haven't heard of it.
Well, there we go.
Great technology. I'd highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, as I said, if people want a bit more of an in-depth thing, a little bit to sit down and read, Leeway Hertz wrote a really nice article on it, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was cool. But just a quick note there, that article is a bit more technical focused. It's talking more about how to run a node on their network. If you want to learn more, I would really recommend just looking up stellar.org. Their website is great. Their documentation is some of the best documentation in the crypto space. Yeah,
it's really cool stuff, man. The more I learn about it, and I think that's why they definitely included that their links in there to stellar.org, because if you're wanting to learn the baseline stuff, that is not really the easiest thing to do, is start reading a super technical article right away. It can be a little tough, right? So definitely go scope out stellar.org. And they got a really nice website too. Like, as I look at it, it's really nice. It's really it just shows you what it does. Even talks about cool little things like, micropayment services, and just how they have it designed where it has it's basically also an exchange too, which is cool.
Yeah, they've got a built-in DEX, which is one of the main selling points of the platform, because unlike Ethereum, Ethereum can't really even support an order book model because it's too expensive. But on Ethereum, the liquidity is pretty fragmented because you have a bunch of different DEXs competing for transaction volume and liquidity. So that means that there's a lot of different places to actually put liquidity. And on Stellar, everything flows through this one order book. So all the liquidity is concentrated there. And then in addition, there's a proposal to add on-chain AMMs to it pretty soon. So automated market makers like Uniswap or SushiSwap or whatever AMM you're familiar with. And that's going to use, eventually it's going to, they're doing a V1, but it still is part of the DEX. It just doesn't work the same. But they're eventually probably going to add interleaved execution to those AMMs, which means that, like say you place an order to buy Ethereum on Stellar's DEX, and it's a fairly large order, so the best prices, or you would get the best price if you executed the trade against both the orders on the DEX and the AMMs. It'll swap your buy order between both the DEX and the AMM, filling portions of it from each, so that you get the best price possible. So in that way, it operates somewhat like a DEX aggregator on Ethereum, just much more efficiently.
Right. And, there's not many people that are developing a tool like that where it helps you kind of get the best price for your trade. The only other group of people that I've talked to directly, right, is the test guys, the test token do not buy guys. They have a pretty serious company where they develop this thing called Fool's Tools, which does a similar thing. This seems like it's a little bit more automatic, though. Like it's automated, right? Which is really nice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to compete with people that have better tools. You know what I mean? Because like we had a guy on here talk about his app that just tracks the market in your portfolio, which is great. But then we had a guy on before him that his app also trades for you based upon your stuff. So if I had the two apps side by side, I'd choose the one that would make my trading easier too, not just being able to keep track of my portfolio.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
That's what I would do. So, So what does Script bring them to the table?
Yeah. So SCRIPT3, the listeners may not be familiar with Decentralized Finance, but what Decentralized Finance is, it's it's in the name, but completely decentralized finance apps, in that there is no central body that is performing any of the financial applications. So if you have a lending platform, for instance, there's no central body that's administering the loans or taking in and serving as custodian over deposits. It's entirely trust-free and automated using smart contracts that live in a decentralized network. So that's the big use case for Ethereum, but the issue with doing it on Ethereum is it's very slow and very expensive, as anybody that has ever gone on Ethereum and tried to use DeFi has come to realize. There are solutions that are being worked on in that community to try to address that, but they all have their limitations and flaws, unfortunately. So, and a lot of that just comes down to the way the Ethereum network is set up. Decentralized Finance works by running a smart contract function on a node that's part of the blockchain. So, but if you want to run it on chain, so where it's actually being processed as part of that ledger and as part of each block, that means that you have to run it over every single node in the network, and you also have to store a significant amount of data from that smart contract, much of which isn't actually useful, but you need to keep it there so that the blockchain can maintain replayability and be effectively distributed among different nodes in the ledger, and recorded for all future purposes. But anyway, that process is really, really inefficient. Imagine if you had a program on your computer and the only way you could run it is if every other computer in the world also ran it. And as part of that, you have to pay for all the processing costs of all those computers. That's basically how the Ethereum virtual machine smart contract engine is set up. So as you can imagine, very expensive. So we solve that using Turing signing servers.
Exactly the most efficient thing, is it?
No, not at all. Yeah, it's it makes sense why they have to do it, but because they left the smart contracts on chain, they have that limitation. So what we're doing is we're actually taking those smart contracts and processing them on chain, because if you think about it, there's no actual the idea behind a blockchain is you have trustlessness because you have verification of balances and verification of data that are agreed upon throughout the network. So you always know that that's going to be true, right? So if you think about that in the context of a smart contract, what's actually happening in the smart contract, like in all the operations, doesn't necessarily need to be on network and completely verifiable. It's only the output that you care and being true and verifiable, because that's what's actually going to affect the ledger. So what we do is we use a technology called Turing signing servers, which was developed by a guy at the Stellar Development Foundation. Really just ingenious technology. But you can, by the way, if you just look up Turrets Stellar, you can read more about it. I'd recommend doing that because it's pretty simple and it's just super clean and ingenious. But anyway, roughly how it works is Stellar has a built-in multi-signature capability where when you have a transaction, you can require that multiple different signatures sign it in order for it to be valid, right? So what we'll do is we upload a smart contract to 5 different servers or 10 different servers, however many servers we want, ran by different organizations in the Stellar community. And each of those servers has a signature that they can add to that transaction to make it valid, So then, so we upload the same smart contract to all of those servers, and then we send those servers a request. The request processes based on that smart contract that we uploaded and spits out a transaction, then the server signs it. Because all of these transactions are running all of these servers are running identical smart contracts, the output transactions are all going to be identical. And since all the output transactions are identical, all the signatures count towards that multi-sig threshold of this transaction is now valid. So we can use that to create decentralized, trust-free smart contracts that can do pretty much any financial application. So that was a bit of a long explanation, but you kind of get the idea behind how we're doing smart contracts now. But anyway, we're using that to build a couple different finance applications, which I can talk about in a second if you don't have any immediate questions on how turrets work.
I mean, basically, without us sitting down for like 5 hours, you know what I mean? Like, you covered it pretty good,
Yeah.
pretty informative, and that's really good, you know, because the hard part about having centralized stuff is everything has to work the right way and all on the same system, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that don't understand like how the decentralization works, you know. Like, maybe you can shed some light on that. Because if they hear it coming from you, you know, maybe perhaps they'll take it more serious.
Yeah. No, I mean, so it's the system that I just laid out, but the reason that it is decentralized is because the only way you can have a transaction that will generated by the smart contracts that will actually submit is if all of the different servers that are part of that decentralized server network agree on the output of the smart contracts you uploaded to them. So like say I upload a smart contract to these servers that says if Crowley pays me $1 and then I will pay him $10, right? And so the servers have a portion of control over my account, not enough to do anything by themselves, but together they can process a smart contract and generate a valid payment transaction. So Crowley pays me $1 and takes the transaction half of that hash of that payment and uploads it to this smart contract, and just sends a run request to the smart contract with that transaction hash as an input. So all of the different turrets are going to receive that transaction hash and input it into the smart contract, and the smart contract is going to generate a transaction that has my account pay Crowley $10. This turrets will then say, all right, that output looks good to me. I will sign this transaction, and then the Crowley can take all of these signed transactions and combine them because they're all identical and they all have signatures, and submit them to the network. But however, if one turret says, all right, I'm going to do something, I'm going to, for some reason it messes up and creates a payment transaction that pays Crowley $100, that transaction signature and transaction will no longer be combinable with the other 4 signed transactions. So the entire operation will no longer be valid. So, I mean, we have methods to make sure that one turret can't throw it off, because we'll do like 75% have to agree. So just so that there can be no malicious activity on a turret side. But it's decentralized in that respect because all of them together, if they agree on the output and the transaction that we're trying to process, can generate a valid transaction based on a smart contract. But only one of them couldn't do that. And there's no actual input from me required. Also, an important part of this entire thing is once I upload a smart contract to these servers, I cannot change it any longer. So I don't have the option to go in and change that smart contract to me paying Crowley $0 because I already uploaded it and it's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
Like, it's almost like I'm trying to find a good analogy for the people at home of stuff that they've already done, right? Because that's the best way, like metaphor, right? It's kind of like Western Union.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You send stuff through Western Union, but instead of sending it through Western Union, you're just sending it through the blockchain, essentially.
Yeah, kind of. And yeah, instead of like Western Union being there, you have a group, like a committee of 15 Western Unions that are unrelated, but all have to agree that a payment is valid in order for it to happen. But it could be a derivative contract, it could be a loan, it could be a trade, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be a payment. And you were talking a bit about like the downsides of centralization earlier, but this is I think one thing that I'd like to add there, just while we're on this topic of Western Union, is having a centralized entity is also a very risky thing, especially in crypto, because if that centralized unit ever disappears or exit scams or anything, you lose all of your money and you have absolutely zero legal recourse. Like, I'm sure some of the listeners have heard of services like Nexo or Celsius or BlockFi. If those services stop existing tomorrow, if they go bankrupt, all of your tokens are forfeit. There is no insurance on them. They have complete control, and you have to place 100% of your trust in that single organization. In a decentralized system like this one, the trust is decentralized. So yes, while you have to trust like the 15 organizations running the servers that we upload the smart contract to, it's a lot easier to trust that 10 of those servers are going to prevent one of them from doing anything malicious than to only have to trust one entity to never be malicious, because you can be reasonably sure that we use like what's it called? A threshold of trust of like 13 of 15 servers. So 13 of 15 servers would have to collude and be malicious in order to do anything bad in the network. And that's, if they're all trusted entities, that's a really high barrier to hit, you know? It's pretty much completely unrealistic.
Right. It's a lot easier when like everybody has like the same motivation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Versus,
yeah, exactly.
Say for instance, you're trying to guarantee like the security and safety of something. It's easy to fall victim to predators if you're trusting the wrong folks. If you're trusting one person.
So that's
versus like a lot of these guys, their big motivation is they want to be trusted so the money keeps flowing through.
Yeah, that's entirely it. Like, and that's like a lot of the rationale behind like proof of stake algorithms or the federated Byzantine agreement algorithm that we use or that Stellar uses. And it's like you have a limited set of people that we choose to trust because all of those organizations have a huge vested interest in the Stellar network and in our protocols and in the Turing signing server network. So they have massive incentives not to ever do anything malicious. Additionally, since these aren't anonymous servers, these are servers with real organizations tied to them. If they ever act poorly, they're legally liable. So that's another incentive to not do anything bad. And then so you need the barrier of the threshold of bad acting to actually be effective is crazy. You have to have 13 of 15 organizations, roughly. That's an example. That's not the actual number, but if we used 15, that's roughly what it would be. You have to have 13 of 15 organizations who are already very vested in the Stellar network, in Turing signing servers, in our protocol, to all decide, hey, we don't care about any of this anymore, and we're willing to face legal prosecution. So we're going to all work together and act badly, which is a honestly somewhat ridiculous proposition.
Right. I mean, like, because more often than not, in a group of people, one person's going to have a conscience.
Yeah.
More often than not,
Yep.
someone's going to have an actual conscience. It's not going to just be
and
like
then there's almost always going to be at least one person or one entity that is going to act rationally, and especially considering like the Stellar Development Foundation would be hosting one of these, and like we'd be hosting one of these, and a bunch of other very, very heavily vested organizations would be hosting them. It's like if you look at the profile of organizations that we're going to be selecting, it's preposterous that this could happen, or that anything bad would happen. It's a lot like if you're familiar with Chainlink. It's a pretty similar incentive structure to how they operate, or where they have they're permissionless, which I think is probably worse, to be honest, but where they have like a set of nodes. Well, they're both permissionless and anonymous, which I think are both bad ideas, but they have a set of like 5 different organizations and nodes that'll provide Oracle prices to the Ethereum blockchain, and if like some of those nodes act badly, the rest of them can overrule them, right? So it's similar to that, where it's a decentralized system of trust in trustworthy individuals.
right. And that's what you really want at the end of the day. You want a level of accountability. And I think that's like the pivotal changing point, right? Because a lot of people in crypto, like, and you've seen it, there's been a lot of just unaccountability, right? There's been a lot of people
Yes.
And that's on a developer side of a currency. That's not on the blockchain side.
Yep.
That's a different monster altogether. But if the people that are in control of the actual exchanges are bad, then it would actually be like a horror show. You know, it's like
exactly, and that isn't even a outlandish thing to say. Like, there have been many instances of cryptocurrency exchanges just taking all the funds and leaving because cryptocurrency is so easy to steal effectively. And that's like one of the issues with centralized exchanges. Like, yes, you can probably trust an organization like Coinbase and Binance because they're so big, but there have been like, what was the one in there was one in Canada pretty recently that stole everything and ran. There was one in Italy that was a big deal a few years back. I mean, like Mt. Gox, like there's tons of instances of centralized exchanges just disappearing with all the money.
Yeah, it kind of makes me sick. You know what I mean? It just really bothers me, the lack of integrity. Now, I've asked this question to another person when we kind of touched this topic. How do you think they sleep at night?
Yeah, not really sure. Probably very comfortably, to be honest. They don't. I doubt they had much conscience in the first place that they were able to do it.
Right, but what?
Like, you're stealing like thousands of people's money that put their total trust in you. You clearly have like at least some sociopathic tendencies.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, this is the type of person that also would kill somebody without hesitation. You know, if they're willing to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd go that far, but
I don't know if
they're definitely willing to steal.
I don't know.
Steal a bunch of anonymous people's money.
Yeah, ruining lives.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, really ruining lives. But yeah, it's always awful when it happens, and that's why you need decentralized systems of trust.
Right, like,
especially for us. Yeah.
Now, I think the biggest benefit maybe if we were, because no one's a fan of the regulations, right? But maybe regulating, you know, the decentralized systems of trust, maybe just a little bit, make sure that they meet certain prerequisites, and there's like no one can do it anonymously per se. You know what I mean?
No, I think there needs to be some oversight. I mean, look at what happens on Binance Smart Chain, and like there's always like the do your own research stuff, but still, like, you can't when you have like retail investors and retail people coming in mass because they're hearing about what's going on, and it's an incredible technology that's probably going to change the world. It has already changed the world. Like, you can't expect people to come in and know what they're doing when you're trying to appeal to such a wide audience, especially considering that the whole appeal of decentralized finance, or one of the biggest selling points, is expanded access to financial to the financial ecosystem. Like, well, one of the reasons that we exist as SCRIPT3 is because we want to bring lending and derivatives trading to the developing world. And when you have people that already aren't familiar with like high-end financial infrastructure because they might be from a country with less financial infrastructure, and they're coming into a entirely new technological system, you can't expect them to effectively do their own research and know what to look for. And so you need to have some sort of oversight, and the community has kind of, especially on Ethereum, has kind of tried to self-regulate with like expecting that there are audits, but there have been plenty of auditing firms that have not effectively done their job. So I think that some sort of oversight or at least better standards need to be created in order for this thing to survive. Otherwise, you're going to continue hearing about the newest Binance Smart Chain hack every 2 weeks.
You see it. You've seen it. I've seen it. A lot of us have seen what they call like these rug pulls of just, it's crazy, man. They're popping up all the time. Like I was in a Telegram, like I turned my Telegram back on and actually looked at it. And one of the people that I interviewed like my first weekend that I thought they were a total rug pull, which they got hacked, right? It wasn't the guy on the interview, it was someone else. And I was like, you guys are so active? Like, wow, that's some dedication, you know? And that's the thing.
That is one thing that shocks me.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if there's like one bad person on the project, some people might still fully believe in said project. And like, I think there's power in that, because that means that project actually has a chance as long as people believe in it. Because like, there's a lot of stuff that can happen, man. There's people, you know, with the advent of whales pumping and dumping and doing all those sorts of things, a project can survive anything as long as the people still hold on to it. You know, like look at Airbnb. Airbnb failed their first 9 launches. Did you know that?
Yeah.
They failed their first 9 launches. On the 10th launch, they became successful. Yeah,
it takes trial and error. I think the trial portion should probably be more heavily looked at, or at least heavily speculated on in the crypto space, or people should be more careful with it, because Airbnb failed 9 times, but the only people who lost money on those 9 times were accredited investors who knew exactly what they were getting into. When something like Pickle Finance gets hacked, or any of the other like hacks on Ethereum or Binance Smart Chain, there are a lot of people who didn't already have a lot of money, possibly, and two, like they're definitely like not accredited investors. They're just retail people like getting introduced to the space and finding a project they like, and they just lost like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Well, also, it's also a combination of a lack of education on how to properly invest, because you have a lot of people who like, I lost my life savings, and I'm like, you shouldn't have put your life savings into anything ever. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Stop it. And it's
very true.
You feel bad for the guy, but at the same breath, how many times have people told these people, yo, don't put in more than you can lose, be conservative, don't like dump your life savings and stuff, and then they do it anyways. Or people that take out loans and invest and then lose all the money, or like they got the money to pay back their investment but decided to keep all the investment in from the loan because they thought they were able to get more money, and then they lost everything because of a market crash. The market didn't recover fast enough, so now they had to sell at a loss because they had to pay back the base aspect of the loan. Like,
it's terrible. Yeah, like, I saw a story the other day. Have you seen the Internet Computer News?
No, not recently.
Yeah, they well, basically what happened is they changed like all the vesting periods on their early investor lockups to make sure that the team could sell first, and then the team like dumped everything. And there are people like I saw a story of someone that like is currently like has I don't remember what the disease. They have some terminal illness and they're in the hospital, and they need like their ICP lockup vault to pay their medical bills because they were an early investor in ICP, and they thought they were going to have access to it, and now the team just like changed or messed with all the vesting schedules, so they're not going to have access to it, and they like might die because of it, and it was just tragic.
Oh no, that's a shame because they're as of
Sorry, you broke up there.
As of like 13 hours ago, their price just saw a massive hike because of Goldman Sachs.
Oh, really? Goldman said something about them?
Yeah. There is literally an article that says internet computer price up 70% on Goldman mention. What now for ISP?
Yeah. Of 70% of that and down like what? 98% since like
it's not back to
where
it's not
even
really
close
was.
to back.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I mean, it's a cool project, but like, and I support what they're doing. It's a cool project. I'm sure the team had their reasons, but like I see stuff like that, and I'm like, damn, that is just awful.
Yeah, I mean, when the team is like, of course, when you have like a group of backers behind a project, you know they're going to pull out.
Yeah.
You know they're going to pull out at some point. Mm-hmm. Their whole thing is they're investing so they can pull out. But finding the right investors who aren't going to just tank your project's hard too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's really difficult to find the right team. I mean, so with you're running this project, right?
Yep.
So how did you go about vetting your team members? Since we're talking about, vetting stuff and looking into things, doing research, how did you select the people in your team? Like, how did you go about that?
Well, I got lucky with some of them because some of them I've known for a couple of years now, and I've known they're great. Like I'm close with them and other great people. They happen to be very talented devs and designers. So I managed. I trust them completely, and I started the project with them. And then, I mean, honestly, other people you do have to take. You have to. I mean, it's part of hiring people. You have to take risks on people when you hire them. You don't know if they're going to be a great fit for the team. You don't know if they're going to be completely trustworthy. But you should you just don't give them complete access to everything when you hire them. And honestly, no one should ever have complete access to anything.
You also don't know if
you don't know if they're going to work hard. You don't know if they're going to be employees. But yeah, I mean, you have to take a risk on people and hope that it works out. And if it doesn't work out, you remove them as an employee and you move on. But I mean, we've been very lucky. Like all of our team members are wonderful, and I am very grateful that we found them, especially with the recent hiring shortage in blockchain.
Right. And, I've had the same thing too. And you've probably experienced the same type of, I would almost call it disappointment of you hire someone and at first they perform very, very well and you have high expectations. Then they just turn out to not perform whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like I had this, maybe you have had similar situations, right? Where you had an employee that was doing good, then you gave them a raise and then all of a sudden they're not performing anymore. Have you ever seen that?
Not on my team, but I mean, I'm not surprised that does happen to people.
Yeah, I think it's the most bizarre thing when you hire someone, then they're doing a great job, and then you give them a significant raise, and now they're like, I'm not gonna put in the work anymore. And I'm like, what the fuck? Gave you a big raise. What's happening here? But yeah, man, I think so there's a member of the editing team. He loves the more informative interviews, right? Because honestly, Marcus, I'll tell you this right now. Sometimes I'll bring a person on and they don't know what they're talking about and they're not educated on things.
Yeah.
I like talking to people that are more educated than me on stuff. And which isn't very hard, all you gotta do is be a specialist in your field. That's it, right?
Yeah. Which is, I'd hope that most of your guests are specialists in cryptocurrency, or at least
a lot of them are devs,
informed.
and they portray themselves as specialists, right? But it's very obvious when I bring on a person like you, or I bring on like Akash from Leeway Hertz, or I bring on Joe from Digibyte, or one of these other guys who they've been in the space. How long have you been in the space?
Since 2018.
So
not that long, but I mean, I spent all my time on it. So
right. So like a lot
Manage
of the
to learn.
guys that I'm talking to, they've been in the space, for like, oh, this is my first project and it's about a month old. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? And it's like,
Yeah.
I plan to launch a project, but I also plan to have like a lot of smarter people than me working on it,
Yeah.
And I think like you as an employer can really relate to this. You hire people that are better at the things that you're not good at,
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that's
Absolutely.
that's the big thing. So like when, for instance, if I were to start this project, if I wanted to do an interview and I knew that they wanted to know about the protocols and the development of everything, I would either A, make them do the interview, or B, bring them on with me at the very least. So
No, yeah, absolutely.
my whole point of this, Marcus, right, is it's refreshing to have a guest who knows what he's talking about.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that I am managing to bring a unique perspective to your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, so here is the thing. You're talking about like the lack of regulation, the shifty people and stuff like that. Why don't we give some advice to the people at home on what to look out for? What are the things they need to know to avoid?
Well, I mean, the best rule of thumb is if something seems too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. Now that is obviously a variable rule. Like, it isn't uncommon to see yields in the blockchain space that are over 100% and they're legitimate. But when you're seeing something like Titan, which there were yields of like 3,200%. It probably has some sort of economic flaw, and then they got rugged, and the project got absolutely destroyed. So that's the biggest thing to look out for. Be a lot more skeptical when you see something that doesn't look like it should make sense, and then also always look for audited smart contracts. If something's just a blind fork of something else, it probably was built by a team that doesn't really know what they're doing, I mean, honestly, what happens a lot, which is unfortunate, is I've seen a lot of Ethereum projects get forked onto Binance Smart Chain, and then a vulnerability was like they literally just copy and pasted the code and put it on Binance, and a vulnerability was later discovered in the code after the copy, which shouldn't really happen if you think about it, because they're just copying and pasting code. But all of a sudden there was a sanity check that was removed in the smart contract, and now everybody that was part of the project lost thousands and thousands of dollars. So when you see blind forks, I'd be more skeptical. When you see unaudited projects, I'd be much more skeptical. And I think anonymous devs are also probably a risk factor. While there are some great anonymous projects out there, I'd be just a little bit more skeptical when I see anonymous devs, because that person isn't as personally attached to that project some of the time. So, and then just be careful. Things that are too good to be true probably is the best rule of thumb.
Right. And, there are certain anonymous devs out there who they let their voice be known, right? If this person came out of nowhere, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's very true. There are some great anonymous devs, but if they just popped up out of the blue.
Right. Like, for instance, I don't really put my face out there because this is a funny story, right? My voice is very recognizable, and I have a very adamant fan base from my other channel, and it's kind of spooky, right? Like some of the things that these people are writing and stuff. Like I'm pretty sure if they knew what I looked like, they'd hunt me down,
Yeah.
And so because I've been out in public, because there was a point where I was really considering, I'm going to really reveal who I am, and then I started getting recognized by people in public by my voice. And people are like, hey, can you send a picture? Can you send a voice clip to my friend? And so on and so forth. And then there started being pictures of people drawing themselves pregnant with my children.
Wow.
And I was like,
strange.
You know what? I'm going to stay anonymous.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm
going to stay anonymous.
But
I got a kid. I don't want,
I don't want this kind of attention. No, I 100% get that. People have their reasons for being anonymous.
In the same breath, though, I appreciate their enthusiasm for my work, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact I can inspire someone to act so bizarrely is kind of cool.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that is kind of cool.
But
passionate fan base.
Yeah, they're extremely passionate, and I care about them. But I ain't gonna let them really into my inner life.
Yeah. You have your internet persona and your channel persona and that life, and then you have your personal life. And a lot of people want to keep that separate, and I 100% get that. Being anonymous teams aren't necessarily a bad thing, but when it's an anonymous team popping up out of nowhere with a fork of a well-known project with no known VC investors, just be a little bit more careful. Maybe do a little bit more research and digging before you go send money to their smart contract.
Yeah, and also like the difference. Like, say for instance, there is a guy who he's a blogger, right? And he's got a bunch of stuff. He's got a lot of content out there. Like, he's got hundreds of posts and whatnot. And he's like, hey, I wanted to do this. Well, he's well enough known in the space to where people kind of can pick up on how he operates a little bit. You know, and it's just it's a very interesting dilemma, because even though Satoshi, right, like his face is out there, but we don't really know if that's really his face.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. So it's still up for debate.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really just it's an interesting concept. But I agree. Like, if you gotta, like, the one that I was surprised that they were still around and still living, when he came onto the podcast, he wanted his voice obscured in post. And like me, I'm like, okay, whatever, this seems kind of shady, but you know what? If you want to protect your safety and your identity or whatever, I'm all for it. It's just like, because if someone brings a project to me to talk about, I'm going to talk about that project because I'm curious of how it's going to pan out. Like, I have a morbid curiosity.
Exactly.
That's why, you know, I do this thing, because I like to learn. But in the same breath, it's unfortunate how some of these people take advantage of people.
Yeah.
I kind of wish...
I cannot agree more.
I kind of wish it would stop, because it's gross, you know?
No, absolutely. Like, yeah, there's... And the fact, like, there are so many just, like, out there that... where the dev sets up an insider channel with 4 different whales, and they hype up the project a ton on Telegram and Discord, launch the token, the whales pump it. Again, they have the majority of the supply. Retail starts buying in, and then the whales just dump. And just normal people just lose money. And that was the goal all along. There was no other goal there. It was just to take advantage of people trying to learn about the space and trying to get involved in something new.
Yeah, I have a friend who got involved into a project, because there's always mitigating circumstance for everything, because not everything always is all or nothing.
Yeah, nope.
Got a friend
absolutely
who he was on a whitelist for a place, and a lot of the original whitelisting spots wanted to sell off. He's like, well, listen, okay, I will, because the project launched at a horrible time, and he bought their supply. You know what I mean? And like, so he's the majority holder, but he's like, you know what? I'll use it for giveaways. You know,
that's awesome.
And because he wants it to succeed, but he also realized how much of a red flag it looks like.
Yep. You know, where he owns, like, one person owns 90% of the supply. Yeah, all of that. Yeah, I get that.
He doesn't own.
Yeah, it isn't always the case.
90%.
Like,
he owns like 30%, I think, which is a lot. But there was a lot of people. He didn't want the project to die. You know, and it's a hard thing to, like, look at stuff. And that project right now, they're trying to relaunch. It's a hard thing when you're in the space and you believe in a project and you don't want it to die. So you have a couple of options. You can either let it die, or you can try to buy the stuff to keep it alive. And I feel like that's where it starts to get really kind of muddy, and it's unfortunate.
Yep. No, it's it'll get better over time. The space is mature more. People are going to learn more. It's good eventually. become a more mature industry where that kind of stuff doesn't really happen nearly as frequently, either because there's more community oversight or more regulatory oversight, or people just don't give projects that are sketchy the time of day. Like it'll change eventually.
Right. And it's the gold rush mindset right now, I think, is the biggest downfall.
Yeah.
Now there's some cool projects out there. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, it is. I'm happy that there's so much excitement and stuff about the space, because I'm 100. Like, I truly believe that this is the future of finance. But I think there are a lot of really great projects that don't get as much attention as they should because of all the rampant, crazy speculation on stuff that doesn't really do anything valuable for the world. So, I mean, it's got its pros and cons for me.
Right. I mean, some exist to do really good things. Some exist just to create hype and see how far it will go. Both of which both of which are viable things, right? Like, I view some of I view some of the
go ahead.
Those lottery tokens, right? They're just giving back to their holders as a portion. I see that as a positive feedback loop ecosystem, so to speak, right? Like,
yeah, I don't really mind those. I mean, like, if someone wants to play the lottery, go for it. Who cares? Yeah, it's stuff like Dogecoin, where I'm like, I'm happy about it, but also like a little sad, because Dogecoin has gotten into space. It's brought a whole bunch of attention, and it's been overall great for the ecosystem. But at the same time, Dogecoin is like a top 5 market cap cryptocurrency, and Dogecoin doesn't do anything. It's built on the same tech as Bitcoin, but it doesn't have the same like reserve currency status. So the value, there just isn't any value there. It's and everybody knows it, but no one really cares.
Right. Like, it is what it is. It exists because it can.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a scary thing too. Like, honestly, the fact that it can just exist for the purpose of existing.
Yeah, I mean, that's been kind of the story of retail investing this past year, though. Like GME, AMC, all these stocks that are crazy overvalued. Like, everybody knows they're overvalued, but they're just overvalued because they can be, because people are willing to pay that much, because people are willing to hold on to it, as it's almost become a community thing at that point. Like, Dogecoin's the same thing. Dogecoin doesn't really have a whole lot of real utility, but people have decided that it has value, so it does. I mean, that's how money works, right?
That's like, yeah, it's like, if you're a fan of Doge, I'm sorry, but it doesn't really have a value because it doesn't even have a use case yet.
Yeah. I feel like most Doge holders kind of know that. It's a lot of fun. It's a great meme. It's got a lot of people into the space, and it's fun to trade. But like, it isn't, Doge isn't the currency of the future. If it was, though, I wouldn't be too super upset, because that would be hilarious. But I think realistically, most people understand that.
Oh, it'd be funny as hell. It'd be funny as hell if it was a currency of the future. Don't get me messed up, but I don't know if the Doge people are trying to find a unilateral use case for it so that it can, like, be that.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
They're meme lords. I would love to be proven wrong, though. You know, I've been trying to reach out
if the Doge community is out there listening, go ahead and prove me wrong.
Yeah. I would love that, because if they just developed an actual application for use case, their price would skyrocket.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's because, like, I think most crypto devs are focused on Ethereum and other projects that are more focused on real world value, like Ethereum, Stellar, Solana, all of that stuff. I mean, even Bitcoin, but Bitcoin just has this massive following, and it's got a huge first mover advantage. So even though the technology is, I think at this point it can be unarguably said that the technology of Bitcoin isn't nearly as good as the competitors, but the brand recognition and just raw clout that it has among the general human population is unrivaled. But most serious devs are either focused on Bitcoin or other really promising cryptocurrencies Ethereum, like Stellar, like some of the new ones coming out.
Now, what if, and I'm speculating here, what if there was like a meme coin that got released, but it was packaged as a meme coin, but it had real like target to do just things in retail space. You know what I mean? Like it had everything from like NFTs to being able to purchase material goods, but the memeability of it would be through the roof. That would be a thing.
Yeah, I guess so. Probably. Those probably exist. They're probably just forks of Ethereum.
Right. I get curious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now we were talking about forks and stuff, and I know we're coming very short on time. Now is something like Stellar something that eventually will have the ability to have its own fork from it? Like,
there are tons of forks of Stellar. They're mostly private forks. So like some company comes along and is looking for a blockchain to build on for their own private use case, and they fork Stellar and use it. Oh no, there are a couple public ones too. I know I'm a bit biased, but Stellar does have one of the best consensus algorithms out there. It's got really incredible technology. I did a lot of research before deciding to build on it. But the team behind it is really good. So there are plenty of people that have forked it and gone slightly different directions with it, or used it for their own private company use case.
Well, that's exciting. You know, I actually, believe it or not, just because there's so much to keep up with in this space very specifically, I hadn't even heard about Stellar until like last week, and now it's what everyone's talking about. It's great. I mean, I'm glad that people are learning about it now. It's like it's really been 3 days that I've known about Stellar, and I've heard about Stellar every single day this last week.
Really? That's hilarious. Every
single day, because I had Akash on here, then I had the Dev Null guy, Dev Null Productions, who he works with XRP and some other Stellar stuff, and then now you, and it's like, I need to look at Stellar a bit more.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, the fact that they have Turing complete smart contract capabilities now is unreal. It's completely game changing, and in such a novel and efficient way. Like, I mean, the entire network's about efficiency and supporting financial applications. So, it's about supporting financial applications. So efficiency is key, and that's why I originally decided to build on it, because back in 2018, when I first started looking into blockchain, I'm very well versed in derivatives, like financial derivatives. So I realized that there was a lot of parallels and opportunity and compatibility between blockchain and financial derivatives, because financial derivatives have an incredibly inefficient and friction-laden ecosystem, and blockchain would get rid of a lot of that friction, because it has the capability for trust-freeness, where you don't need 15 different organizations to serve as custodians and do verifications and transfer funds. You could just do it all in a smart contract or on a blockchain. So I originally looked at Ethereum because I knew smart contracts work on Ethereum, but then I realized, like, if you have a financial application, you can go on Robinhood and trade options for free right now. So you need to have something that can compete with that price point, and I can do options on Stellar for less than 1/100 of a cent, so basically free. But on Ethereum, they cost a lot because of how inefficient the network is. So yeah, it's a great product, and they're really focused on just one piece of crypto, which I think gives them a big advantage in that they're focused on financial applications, because they've just optimized really heavily for that.
Well, man, that's cool, and I really appreciate your time, man. This has been a great talk. Now, if people want to know more about what you do, where do they go and what do they find?
Absolutely. So we have our website is SCRIPT3, so SCRIPT3, I think the number 3.io. And on there, they can find links to our Discord channel and our Keybit, and as well as documentation on our protocols. We're looking at launching a decentralized lending protocol on Stellar. So think Compound and Aave on Ethereum, but this is on Stellar, and it's got some other additional factors to it that you can find if you Yeah, check out our documentation on our website. And we're also hoping to do an options protocol beginning of next year, and we're going to do some stuff with FX swaps and futures in between those two periods. But yeah, so you can find all the information on our website and links to everything. We also have a Medium blog where I put up blog posts about what we're building and how it works, and I tried to make that a little bit more readable than the documentation. So go ahead and check that out too. That's script3.medium.com, I believe. We're on Twitter too, so you can find us there. Just at Script3 official.
Your website
plenty of avenues.
Really nice, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, one of my partners put a lot of time into making sure that it looks great.
The little blocks react to the scrolling, which is great.
Yeah, no, I love it. He did a wonderful job there.
It's gorgeous. Well, Marcus, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of fun. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, of course. Now, folks, you know what time it is. You gotta like, comment, subscribe, and share it to all of your friends and ring the bell so you can get in on the know on all these ground floor projects, these new exciting applications, and everything else that's out there underneath the sun, because we talk about it all here on Crypto God. Everything from developing the blockchain to just new projects to where you can invest and you can come and learn about the space. And the last thing you need to do when you do your own research and do some investment is hold all that shit.